Suddenly, without a word or warning, young biker, dressed in black leather, slapped a 73-year-old veteran outside the gates of Arlington Cemetery. The veteran stumbled, his medals clinking as he hit the ground. People gasped. A woman screamed. Someone tried to step in, but froze when they saw what happened next. From behind the misty corner, a convoy rolled in fast, tires screeching, and out of the front vehicle stepped a black Cobra commando. The silence snapped like a dry twig. The biker looked like he'd seen a ghost. Every person present stood frozen, not from honor, but fear. Because this wasn't just any commando. This was the one they never expected to show up. And what he did next silenced the entire nation. The old man hadn't said a word since arriving. He stood quietly at the gate, back straight, in a uniform that looked like it had seen 3 wars. His boots were polished, but cracked. His medals, some bent, some faded, were real. You could feel it. The weight of memory hung from his chest. But still, the guards blocked him. "You're not on the list," the younger one said, looking at his clipboard with a kind of robotic indifference that belongs only to those who've never seen battle. "I served with General McAdams," the old man had said calmly. "He asked me to be here." But the other guard smirked. "Sir, please don't make a scene. This is a restricted funeral." Behind them, black cars rolled past. Generals, dignitaries, press. No one looked at the old man. He was invisible, that is, until the biker came. No one knew why he was there. He wasn't part of the funeral. He wasn't military. But he walked straight up to the veteran and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "You're a fake." And then he slapped him. That slap wasn't just a sound. It was a warning, a fire alarm, a scream in a church. The sound echoed through the cold Virginia air. But the veteran didn't fight back. He simply looked at the biker with eyes that had seen the Tet Offensive, Desert Storm, and 100 unspeakable things in between. Then the convoy arrived. Matte black SUVs with government plates, tinted windows, radios buzzing. People turned. This was unusual. No scheduled arrivals. The vehicles stopped abruptly. Doors opened, and out stepped a single figure 6'4", lean and dressed in the black urban tactical gear of the elite black Cobra Commandos. No name tags, no insignia, just the black Cobra patch on his shoulder. And he walked straight toward the scene. The biker froze. "What the hell?" he whispered, stepping back. The commando didn't speak. He looked at the veteran, looked at the guards, and then did something no one expected. He reached into his belt pouch, pulled out a folded paper, and handed it to the guard. "Directive 119, he said coldly. The guard's face changed as he scanned it. "But this overrides the entire guest list." "Correct," said the commando. "Let him through." The crowd murmured. Cameras clicked. The biker stood confused. The commando turned to him slowly. "You have 1 second to leave, or you'll be removed." The biker opened his mouth, but then saw something in the commando's eyes, something old, like war. He turned and ran. The crowd parted. No one followed. Everyone was watching the old man. He stepped through the gates with quiet dignity, and, for the first time, the cemetery fell completely silent. No cars, no speeches, just the wind. And then, from the far end of the path, an officer appeared, tall, decorated, a 4-star general. He walked in full view of everyone, paused before the old man and, without a word, saluted. It wasn't a casual gesture. It was sharp, respectful, deep. And then the general turned toward the funeral and gestured for the old man to walk with him. Cameras rolled. Reporters whispered. And the story that no one expected had just begun. What people didn't know, what the media hadn't reported, was that General McAdams had written a letter weeks before his death. In it, he'd requested only one personal guest at his funeral: Sergeant Charles D. Keller, Vietnam, 3rd Recon, Purple Heart, the man who pulled him from a burning APC in Cambodia, the man who'd vanished into civilian life with no fanfare, no medals, no ceremony. But the guards at Arlington hadn't known. No digital record, no active military ID, just a man who looked out of place. And that, in today's world, was enough to be dismissed, but not anymore. Not after what just happened. The story exploded online within hours. Videos of the biker assaulting the old man. Footage of the Black Cobra stepping in. Freeze frames of the general's silent salute. It was on every channel. People cried. Veterans called into radio stations. Comment sections lit up with one repeated phrase: "Never again." And as Sergeant Keller walked alongside the general, he whispered something that no mic could catch. But the general nodded solemnly. That night, President Harrow requested an unscheduled intelligence briefing. And for the first time in 19 years, Operation Silent Witness was reopened, because the man they let into the funeral that Death-a-One nobody recognized was holding a secret that could bring down half of Washington, but that is a story for tomorrow. That night, after the funeral faded into the darkness and the cameras went home, a low hum filled the air above Arlington as two black military choppers cut silently across the sky, their lights off, their mission classified. Inside one of them sat Sergeant Charles D. Keller, his eyes scanning the ground below, like he had a sixth sense for danger still buried under the soil. Beside him sat the same Black Cobra commando who had intervened earlier that day, now with his helmet off, revealing a scar that ran from the corner of his eye to his temple, a permanent reminder of the mission in Fallujah that never made the news. "Sir," the commando said quietly, handing Keller a worn file. They reopened it. Operation Silent Witness. Keller didn't flinch, but his fingers tightened slightly. He didn't need to open it. He remembered every line of that operation, like it was tattooed in his blood. Because Silent Witness wasn't just a mission, it was a cover-up so dark, so rooted in betrayal, that even speaking its name used to be a death sentence. "Where's the extraction team?" Keller asked. "Already deployed to Red Zone Alpha," the commando replied. "We just need you to ID the key target." Only you knew his face. The files were wiped. Keller closed his eyes briefly. That face, the man responsible for wiping out Echo Unit during the K-9 ambush on the Laos border. The man who sold coordinates to the enemy for a satchel of blood money. And now, that man was a U.S. senator with clearance above the CIA. "He was at the funeral," Keller whispered. The commando looked up, stunned. "Who?" "Senator Randall Jennings, 2nd row, blue tie, silver pin." "I never forget faces," Keller said. "Especially not the ones who betrayed my men." The commando reached for his Coms. "We confirm this, we move." But Keller stopped him. "No, not yet. We do this by the code. We gather, we expose, we make the truth undeniable. Because if we strike too soon, we become the enemy's story." The chopper landed quietly at a secure black site in Langley. 2 guards stepped aside as the steel doors opened to a private war room buried 20 feet underground. Inside were 4 people: a cyberintelligence analyst named Vega, a decorated colonel named Briggs, a deep ops tracker named Arlo, and a grim-faced intelligence auditor from the Pentagon. No names, just roles. Keller entered, and silence fell. Even the auditor stood. Keller didn't waste time. Senator Jennings was part of Operation Silent Witness. He sold coordinates of Echo Unit to an unaligned militia. We have one chance to prove it, because he's about to be named head of Joint Intelligence next week. The room shifted. Vega tapped her keyboard and brought up heat maps, old mission logs, and declassified drone data. Arlo cross-referenced voice logs and smuggled intercepts from a defector in Jakarta. Slowly, a map of connections formed, strings of red tying. Jennings' 2 encrypted transfers, ghost contractors, and long-dead soldiers. And then the undeniable hit. A recently uncovered audio file, corrupted but partially restored. In it, a man's voice confirming drop point. Keller's team won't know what hit them. Keller's jaw clenched. That's him. The Pentagon auditor stood. This is actionable intelligence. But it's going to take more than ghosts and old records. We need a live witness. And that's when Keller said the name no one expected. Sierra 6. The room froze. Colonel Briggs said, "He's dead." "No," Keller replied. "He disappeared. I know where he is." Sierra 6 had been the sniper embedded with Echo Unit, the only one who survived after Keller. He vanished into the mountains after the ambush went rogue, and hadn't been seen since 1991. Rumors said he lived in the high Andes under a different name. Others said he turned mercenary. But Keller knew the truth because he'd gotten one message from him 3 years ago. A simple sentence: "When the lies come home, call me." It had no signature, but the handwriting was unmistakable. The mission was now clear: retrieve Sierra 6, protect the evidence, and stop Jennings before he became untouchable. But it wouldn't be easy. Jennings had his own private security, Detail Exodus, group contractors trained not just to kill, but to erase. They had full-spectrum surveillance, AI tracking drones, and a kill switch system that could wipe any trail in under 60 seconds. "If we do this, we go black," said the commando. "No oversight, no backup, no extraction." Keller nodded. "We've been alone before." Within hours, a ghost team was mobilized. Keller, the commando, Arlo, and Vega, 4 people against an empire of lies. Their first stop, Peru. High altitude, low visibility, no fly zone. That's where Sierra 6 was last spotted, under the alias Domingo Varga, living in a village that had no phones and no roads. The trek took 3 days, through fog, jungle, and altitude sickness. And then, at dawn, on the 4th day, they saw him. Long hair, beard, eyes like frost. He was sitting by a cliff, carving wood. He looked up and said, "Took you long enough." Keller didn't smile. "We need you." Sierra 6 stood, slowly. "Jennings?" "Yes. I kept the footage. I kept it all," he said. And from a hollowed-out cane, he pulled a microdrive the size of a fingernail. "You better get me back alive." On their return, they were ambushed near Quito. Jennings' private men, night operation, drones, snipers. It was a full kill-op. But Sierra 6 hadn't lost his edge. One shot, 3 kills. Arlo hacked their drone mid-air and crashed it into the mountain. The commando covered extraction, while Keller took a bullet to the arm, dragging Vega behind a collapsed ridge. But they made it, and they had the proof. Raw video of Jennings speaking to the militia leader. GPS logs of the handoff. Time-stamped orders with his signature. "We go live," said Vega. But Keller shook his head. "Not yet. We do this where they can't spin it. We do it at the Capitol. In person." And the next day, dressed in full uniform, Keller walked into a live congressional hearing with every camera rolling. He handed the drive to the committee chair, turned to Jennings, and said just 5 words. "You forgot I survived, traitor." Chaos erupted. Jennings tried to stand, but Sierra 6 entered the room behind him. "Sit down, Randall," he said, calm as ice. The video played. Senators gasped, reporters screamed, and in 10 minutes, 30 years of silence exploded into headlines. Jennings was arrested on the spot, and the crowd outside, veterans, hundreds of them, saluting in silence. The old man they tried to block had just saved the country. But this time, the gates stayed open. The arrest of Senator Randall Jennings sent shockwaves across the entire country, but the truth is, it was just the beginning. Within 24 hours, 4 major intelligence systems were breached simultaneously. Secure files vanished from Pentagon archives. 2 key witnesses went missing. And inside a cold, sterile holding cell, Jennings smiled not with fear, but with something darker. "You think this ends with me," he said, looking straight into the mirrored glass of his interrogation room. On the other side, Keller watched. Sierra 6 stood beside him, arms crossed. "He's right," Sierra said quietly. "He was never the top. He was the mouthpiece." Vega confirmed it that night. As she sifted through the data they retrieved, she found something buried, a subroutine embedded in the footage. A trace code marked Omega 17. It wasn't just a signature. It was a breadcrumb. And it pointed not to Jennings, but to a ghost-level directive from 1993 labeled Directive Emberfall. It had no author, no agency, origin, but it triggered if Silent Witness ever surfaced publicly. Now it was live, which meant someone else was watching. Someone who'd waited decades to activate the next phase. He was the distraction, Keller said. So we'd think it was over. That night, Sierra 6 received a secure satellite ping-in encrypted message, routed from Switzerland. It was only 6 words. "I warned you not to dig." No sender. But both he and Keller knew who it was. A name that hadn't been spoken in 29 years. Elias Braun, former CIA black architect, disavowed, rumored dead in Prague. The man who built Silent Witness from scratch. The man who disappeared after orchestrating 4 regime changes and 2 international assassinations. Braun had always played the long game, and now he was back. The team met at a secure bunker beneath Fort Latham, one of the last places in the country not networked into modern intelligence grids. "If Braun is alive," Vega said, "he has access to Protocol 0, full global disrupt capacity." Arlo dropped a classified report on the table. 3 shadow banks moved $142 million in crypto in the last 6 hours, all routed through proxies Braun used in 1995. Keller leaned forward. "Then this isn't revenge. It's a reboot." The new objective was clear trace Brome's location, expose directive Emberfall, and dismantled the rogue infrastructure before it triggered a continental black signal. Because if Emberfall went fully active, the US would enter a digital blackout in under 72 minutes. Keller wasn't just racing time. He was racing a man who'd prepared for this for 30 years. Their first lead came from a defector named Alina Markov, a Russian field analyst who'd been monitoring rogue American cyber movements. She'd gone off-grid after leaking embassy footage during the Istanbul blackout. Sierra and Vega tracked her signal to an abandoned train terminal in northern Estonia. The extraction was brutal. 5 hostile operatives. One drone strike narrowly missed Vega as they crossed the platform. Alina was wounded, but alivened. She confirmed their worst fear. Brom had built a ghost satellite, ton-registered off-net, hidden in the shadow of a Chinese telecom array. Its code name, Black Helix, and it had just come online. If he connects the Helix to any critical grid, he can erase every military archive, bank, and voting system in the Western Hemisphere in 5 minutes, she warned. And he had one more thing, a kill list. And at the top was Sergeant Charles D. Keller. Back in D.C., Sierra and Arlo locked down the bunker, while Vega attempted to isolate the uplink path of the Helix. But something was off. The signal was mobile. He's not controlling it from Europe, she said. He's inside CONUS. And then they saw it, a heat map of uplink signals routed through a decoy defense contractor in Utah. He's underground, somewhere in the Nevada basin, Vega whispered. That's why we couldn't see him. They had one shot, one approach, and it had to be now. If he activated Phase 2 of Emberfall, not only would the data vanish, the nation's defense authorization would revert to a Cold War protocol, giving nuclear launch authority to a buried fail-safe AI system Brom had helped design in 1987. In short, the world could end without a human ever giving the order. The team geared up old school. No trackers, no cloud systems, just analog tools, hardened gear, and years of battlefield scars. They flew out at midnight in a low-profile stealth jet, dropped 30 miles outside the Utah desert, and began the silent march toward the black site known only as Zone Ether. And then hell came. Explosions rocked the sand as thermal mines activated. Arlo was thrown into a crater. Drones dropped from the sky like vultures. Sierra picked off targets with sniper precision, but they were pinned. He knew we were coming, Keller growled, dragging Arlo under a rocky outcrop. He wanted us here. And then Brom's voice echoed through the Coms hijacked icy.com. I made you legends. Don't ruin your legacy. Keller spat into the dirt. You're not legend, you're rot. Then, without hesitation, he stood and charged straight toward the source tower, lobbing EMP grenades and drawing fire. Sierra and Vega followed. One shot clipped Keller's shoulder, but he kept going. They breached the bunker wall in under 45 seconds. Inside servers, war maps, AI loops, running predictive chaos simulations. And at the center, Elias Brom, gray hair, still calm, still dangerous. End of the line, Keller said. But Brom smiled and tapped one key. A countdown appeared. 3 o'clock, 2:59, 2:58. You can't stop the Helix, he whispered, but you can decide how you go out. That's when Vega saw it. A manual override tied to the satellite dish, but It required 2 keys turned at once from different ends of the room. One was already with Brom. The other was hidden in a casing near the floor. Keller didn't wait. He dove, grabbed it, shouted to Sierra now, and both turned their keys. A shockwave pulsed, lights flickered, the countdown froze. 001, Brom screamed, lunging at the system, but Sierra shot the console. Sparks flew. The entire bunker began to collapse. "We need to move," Vega yelled, grabbing the drives. They ran. The desert exploded behind them as the black site went up in flames. Dust, smoke, silence. Brom was gone. But the Helix was dead. Emberfall was neutralized, and the truth, finally, was safe. As Keller stood at the ridge, watching the sunrise, he whispered, "Echo Unit, you're avenged." Back in D.C., as news broke of a massive, unauthorized detonation in the Nevada basin, the world remained unaware of how close it came to ending. Jennings was transferred to a high-security facility. Brom was declared missing, presumed dead, but Keller knew better. Men like Brom never die easy. Still, as he walked into the VA hospital that afternoon, this time with guards saluting, people standing, he knew something had changed. The forgotten soldier was forgotten no more. And when a young boy approached him and asked, "Were you really the one who stopped the traitor?" Keller bent down, handed him a patch from Echo Unit, and said, "No, kid, we all did." But deep in the ashes of the desert, a single red light blinked from a half-buried device, once, twice, and then it went dark. A week had passed since the desert burned, and the Helix was buried beneath a tomb of flame and sand. On the surface, the world kept turning. Planes flew, kids went to school, politicians made speeches, but underneath it, all the nation's spine had been reforged by truth. Sergeant Charles D. Keller walked slowly up the steps of the Pentagon, this time not as a ghost from the past, but as a witness to the future. Dressed in full uniform, ribbons shining under the morning sun, he entered a chamber reserved for classified military tribunals. The seal on the door said OIS, Office of Internal Sovereignty. Only for men in the country even knew it existed. Inside waited 3 people: General Malcolm Rhodes, the highest-ranking officer in North Command; Senator Angela Cortez, head of National Defense Review; and Deputy Director Mark Niles from the CIA's ultra-black division. Keller stood tall. Behind him, Vega held the case. Within it, every file, every photo, every transmission they had recovered from Brom's base. "Before you ask," Keller said, "this doesn't go to a vault. This goes to the people." Silence. Then General Rhodes said, "You'll testify." "Publicly," Keller nodded. "Not just me, Sierra 6, Vega, Arlo, every one of us. This country deserves to know what was done in its name." But Rhodes leaned forward, eyes dark. "And what about retaliation? The ones still loyal to Brom?" "Let them come," Keller said coldly. "I'm done running." And so it happened. In a move without precedent, a live broadcast was aired under emergency order across every network and platform. They called it the Echo Testimony. Millions tuned in. Veterans held their breath. Families of the fallen watched from hospital beds, bar stools, living rooms. Keller spoke first. No scripts, no edits, just raw truth. He told of Echo Unit, of the betrayal, the 30-year silence, the systems that covered it up. He named names: Jennings, Brom, Emberfall, silent witness, and when he paused, the silence was thunderous. Then Sierra 6 stepped forward, holding the small drive that had nearly cost them their lives. This is the footage they buried. I was there, I recorded it. I swore I'd never let it see daylight. They played it live, a young Jennings, a meeting with mercenaries, coordinates being traded for cash. Keller's name on the map, Sierra's voice on the comms, and then the Scream the Moment Echo unit was ambushed. Grown men wept, women gasped. The room remained silent for a full minute after the video ended, and then something happened that no one expected. General Rhodes, the most stone-faced man in uniform, stood, and he saluted. Not to the room, not to the flag, but to Keller. One by one, senators stood, journalists stood, civilians across the nation stood in their homes, and they saluted. No speeches, no sound bites, just silent honor. The fallout was swift. Operation Emberfall was officially declassified and dismantled. The survivors of Echo Unit were posthumously awarded the Valor Cross. Sierra 6's name was restored. Vega and Arlo were given permanent field clearance and full protection. Keller was offered reinstatement. He declined. I've seen enough war. I'll spend the rest of my time teaching others how not to need it. But the story didn't end there, because 3 days later, inside a surveillance post in Cairo, a red light blinked, not from the Helix, but from something older. A system last accessed by Brom in 1986. It showed a list, not of targets, but of candidates. Operatives trained from birth to one day carry out protocol echelon. The screen displayed a name, a woman, mid-30s, fluent in 7 languages, disguised as an NGO worker in Central Africa, and beneath it 2 words, active ascension, which meant Brom had planned not for his own survival, but for succession. The story wasn't over, but this time the world was ready, because men like Keller had made sure the truth had teeth. He returned home weeks later to his small cabin by the lake, quiet, peaceful, no medals on the walls. Just a photo of Echo Unit, all of them smiling, alive. The phone rang once. It was Vega. She's been spotted, she said. Keller sighed. Then we start again. Only this time we bring the world with us. He hung up, walked outside, and, for the first time in decades, looked at the sky without fear. Because legends aren't born in war. They're born in silence, in truth, in standing tall when everyone else bows. And now, finally, they'd stood, and the next time someone blocks a man like him at a funeral, the country will already know what that salute means. It means never forget, never again.